Next case, Michael Heilig.
Inside a drab office building in a tightly packed conference room, members of Kentucky's medical board took just 5 seconds to make what many consider a surprising decision.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted.
On that day in November 2018, they fully reinstated the medical license of this man, orthopedic surgeon Michael Heilig.
Well, I was just shocked.
The news was stunning to Danny Davis, who told our Lexington station back then he learned through a flyer in the mail that the doctor he claims did 2 disastrous surgeries on his arm was back in business.
To be so quickly reinstated after some of the things he's done, it makes absolutely no sense.
Medical board documents say Heilig failed a hospital drug screen in May 2018 after a nurse raised concerns he was impaired in the operating room. She told the board Heilig almost fell and was talking a little weird during the first surgery of the day, not acting like himself on the second, and was stumbling with his eyes closed and mumbling on the third. With the doctor so confused about the order things needed to be done, she said the procedure had to be scrapped. But even though records show Heilig had been self-prescribing Ambien, was diagnosed with 2 substance use disorders, and signed a contract with a special state program designed to monitor doctors battling addiction, his license was not suspended or revoked. Instead, Heilig agreed not to practice until he had at least 90 days of sobriety under his belt. And just 6 months after that day in the OR, the board was already signing off on his ability to safely practice medicine, with a restricted license that allowed him to work as long as he abstained from drugs and alcohol, followed the rules of the program, and submitted to random testing.
If we're looking to them to safeguard us in terms of licensing qualified doctors, they have absolutely failed in that.
It's the kind of situation our national investigative team has seen across the country. We've spent months digging into discipline and oversight for doctors dealing with addiction and alcohol abuse, discovering a secretive process that critics say protects doctor reputations while leaving patients in the dark. Time lags in informing medical boards and the public about doctors who have significant issues, and lacks delayed punishments for physicians who've put people at risk while battling their own demons.
It's a serious threat to patients.
A threat Dr. Sidney Wolf with the consumer advocacy group Public Citizen explained is often tackled first with confidential physician health programs, or PHPs, that are operated by state organizations across the U.S. Those programs give addicted doctors an avenue to get clean and sober while potentially avoiding discipline. But we've found their identities are generally kept secret when they're in a PHP, even when they're cleared to return to work. So patients may have no idea their physician is being monitored, routinely screened for drugs and alcohol, and allowed to practice with a laundry list of restrictions.
Would you knowingly go to a doctor who you know had recently a problem with drug or alcohol abuse? Most people would say no.
But generally, people don't know about doctors in rehab or recovery unless there's an imminent risk to the public or until a doctor repeatedly breaks the rules laid out by the PHP program. That's when state medical boards are typically informed. They may hand down disciplinary action, and it's through those records that the public gets a glimpse into what's been happening behind closed doors. Critics of the system, like Dr. Wolf, say it's a disturbing picture.
Amongst the categories that I think are most outrageous and dangerous is the failure to act more promptly and more completely against those doctors with substance abuse disorders.
Our national investigative team looked at actions taken against impaired physicians or physicians in recovery across the country, scouring through hundreds of pages of records from medical boards, looking for evidence of program violations and impairment incidents that the public would likely struggle to find. In states like Idaho, Utah, and Washington, we discovered doctor disciplinary action is hidden in online newsletters. It's only vaguely referenced on websites in Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Iowa, and Kentucky, where you have to search physicians individually by name on a separate page to get specifics about their misconduct. And in Arkansas, you have to file a formal request to get records if a doctor's been disciplined.
Medicine is a field that relies almost completely on trust. When we don't have any transparency about reasons that trust might not be deserved, we have a problem.
Our investigation examined how quickly PHPs inform medical boards when doctors have serious or repeat problems, how swiftly the boards take action, and how harshly physicians who relapse are punished when they don't comply or put patient safety at risk. When it comes to PHPs informing medical boards about noncompliance, we found some doctors got multiple chances before boards were told they weren't following program rules. That includes an Indiana family medicine doctor who was enrolled in his state's PHP in 2018 following drug abuse treatment. Records show he failed 3 required drug tests in 2019 before the state board was ever informed, and his license was only suspended after he was charged with 2 DUIs in 2020. He later retired.
I think the boards have to be much more aggressive in suspending licenses and being to the point where they might even revoke a license. The boards have to be tough when people fail to manage their addictions.
Firm, fast action is what's warranted in these cases, according to Art Kaplan with NYU Medical School, one of the country's leading medical ethicists. But we found revocations are rare. In one Utah case, records show a doctor who admitted to a ketamine and marijuana addiction in 2018 was allowed to surrender his license. When he reapplied in 2020, the state board revoked him, but then immediately reversed that decision and put him on probation. Even extreme cases we found don't always have swift, strong consequences. In 2020, board documents show a Wisconsin doctor who reported drinking before work, driving intoxicated, and treating patients while in active withdrawals went to rehab and enrolled in his state's PHP. Even though the records say he started drinking daily and dropped out of the program in 2021 and was later fired for on-the-job impairment in January of this year, he wasn't disciplined until June. And he got a suspension that was lifted just 2 months later.
I believe that we're leaning too hard right now in many states, not all, but in many, to protect the physician's interests first. And that's because the regulatory system is dominated by doctors who are looking out for their fellow physician and not thinking at any particular time about an individual patient or what might occur.
Back in Kentucky, we don't have any insight into the thinking of the state medical board, which didn't respond to any of our questions about its decisions regarding Dr. Michael Heilig, the physician they put back in practice just 6 months after his alleged impairment on the job. After numerous calls and emails to Heilig and his legal team, one of his attorneys told us he couldn't comment because of active litigation, but that Dr. Heilig is a long-standing member of the medical profession whose priority is providing exceptional care and treatment to his patients.
It's the first one to go to trial.
After losing a 2021 civil lawsuit filed by a former patient who claimed he wasn't fit for surgery, and with at least a dozen other cases still looming, he is back on the board's radar. In late November, it labeled Dr. Heilig an imminent danger after records show he tested positive for fentanyl in June, and a state investigation in August found his practice was operating like a pill mill. He's not allowed to perform surgery or prescribe drugs, but Heilig can still practice medicine if he abstains from drugs and alcohol, as his license was restricted, not suspended. The reason and delay, yet another mystery in a doctor discipline system that puts the emphasis on private practice.